the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the scent of sweet frosting. It was supposed to be a celebration, a baby shower, a new life coming into the world. But I wasn't thinking about babies. I wasn't thinking about the future. I was thinking about the way Marcy had just touched his arm, the way she laughed a little too hard at his joke, the way she leaned in close, too close. I had noticed it before, the small things, late nights, mysterious phone calls, the way she suddenly cared about how she looked, even when she was supposedly just running errands. But this was the final piece of the puzzle. The moment everything clicked into place. I gripped my drink, my knuckles white. The guy, Chad, even his name pissed me off. He was some corporate idiot, all fake smiles and slicked back hair. The type of guy who never had to fight for anything in his life. I watched as Marcy touched his wrist lightly, her fingers lingering for just a second too long. She thought no one would notice. She was wrong. The moment burned into my brain. The way she looked at him. The way she used to look at me. I wasn't some naive fool. I had served in the military, seen men lie straight to their superiors' faces while their hands still dripped with blood. I could read people. I knew when someone was hiding something. And right now, Marcy was hiding a whole damn double life. I forced myself to breathe, to stay calm, even as a storm raged inside me. This wasn't just some harmless flirting. No, I knew something was going on, and I was about to prove it. I walked up, my steps slow, deliberate. Marcy saw me coming and quickly pulled her hand back from Chad's wrist. But the guilt was already there, flashing across her face like a neon sign. "Hey, babe," I said, my voice calm, controlled, dangerous. Her smile was too wide, too forced. "Hey, honey, having fun?" I glanced at Chad. He gave me a tight nod, suddenly very interested in his drink. He knew what was going on. I looked back at Marcy, my jaw clenched. "You've been acting weird lately." Her eyes flickered with something. Panic, maybe? But she covered it quickly with a laugh. "Weird? Babe, what are you talking about? I wasn't playing this game." My phone was already in my pocket, already unlocked. I had been waiting for the right moment. And now was the time. I pulled it out and held it up in front of her. The room was loud, but for us, silence. A message thread. Her message thread. With him. I had gotten into her phone a few nights ago when she was in the shower. Not proud of it, but something in my gut had told me to look. And damn, was my gut right. Messages. Photos. Plans. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. He suspects nothing. I feel bad. But I need this. And the worst one of all? Love you, babe." I watched as her face drained of color. The fake smile disappeared. Her breath hitched. She knew she was caught. And the best part? Everyone was watching. I turned the phone outward, just slightly. Just enough for the people standing near us to catch a glimpse. The realization spread through the group like wildfire. Gasps, murmurs, side glances. Marcy reached for the phone, her voice a frantic whisper. "Henry, please." I stepped back. "How long?" Her eyes darted to the crowd, the fake image she had built around herself crumbling in real time. "Henry, let's talk about this later." "How long?" Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She had no excuse, no lie quick enough. Chad was shifting uncomfortably beside her, looking like he wanted to disappear. I turned to him, my rage now laser-focused. "You knew she was married." He didn't deny it, just nodded slightly, looking at the ground like a scolded child. "Coward," I muttered. Marcy finally found her voice. "Henry, I love you." I laughed. It was a bitter sound, one I barely recognized as my own. Don't even try to pull that card right now." She grabbed my arm, desperate now. "It was a mistake." I ripped my arm away. "A mistake." I held up the phone again. 3 months of lying is a mistake?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "Nothing." I nodded slowly, then turned to the crowd, the family, the friends, all watching with wide eyes. "Well," I said, my voice steady, "guess this baby shower just turned into a divorce party." And with that, I walked out, leaving Marcy standing there, exposed for exactly what she was. I stepped outside, inhaling the cold air like it was the only thing keeping me from snapping. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the muffled voices inside. My fingers tightened around my phone. I wanted to throw it, smash it, destroy it the way Marcy had destroyed everything we had built together. But I didn't. I wasn't going to lose control. Not now. The door behind me creaked open, and I didn't even have to turn around to know it was her. I could feel her presence, that same presence I had once found comforting. Now, it made my skin crawl. "Henry, please, just let me explain." I exhaled slowly, forcing my voice to stay level. "You had months to explain, Marcy. Months where you could have come to me, where you could have told me the truth instead of sneaking around like some pathetic high schooler." She stepped closer. I could hear the desperation in her voice. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I turned then, finally facing her. "Oh? And how was it supposed to be, Marcy?" She swallowed hard, eyes darting around like she was searching for the right words. I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, the sound sharp and hollow. "You never meant to hurt me? Marcy, you chose this. Every time you texted him, every time you lied about where you were, every time you let him touch you. You chose it." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. She reached for my hand, and I yanked it away like her touch would burn me. "Henry, I love you. Stop." My voice was firm, colder than the air between us. "Just stop. You don't get to say that anymore." She bit her lip, looking down at the ground. I could tell she was scrambling for a way out of this, for some excuse that would make it all okay. But there wasn't one. Then, her face twisted into something uglier. "You weren't there for me." I felt something snap inside me. "Oh, so this is my fault now? I'm not saying that." She shot back, voice rising. "But you've changed, Henry. After the military, you were so closed off. You made me feel like I was alone in our own marriage." I took a step forward, rage boiling in my chest. "And that's your excuse for sleeping with him?" She crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "I needed something, Henry. You wouldn't even look at me some days." I stared at her, disbelief washing over me. "You needed something? And instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix what was broken, you ran to the first guy who gave you attention." She looked away, ashamed, but only because she had been caught. "You're pathetic," I muttered, shaking my head. Her eyes snapped back to mine, and just like that, the guilt was gone, replaced with anger. "Oh, I'm pathetic? What about you, Henry? You're standing here, playing the victim, but maybe if you had actually been the husband I needed, none of this would have happened." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. "You really have the nerve to stand here and blame me for this?" She scoffed. "Well, maybe if you had put as much effort into our marriage as you did into feeling sorry for yourself." I cut her off with a laugh, shaking my head. "You know what? I almost believed you were sorry. I almost thought you felt bad about this. But no, you're just mad you got caught." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "I'm done." Her face paled. "What?" I said, "I'm done, Marcy." I took a step back, letting the words sink in. "There's nothing left to say, nothing left to fix. You killed this marriage the second you decided I wasn't enough for you." She took a shaky breath, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. "Henry, please," she whispered. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "No, you can live with this. I'm not fixing anything." She reached for me again, and this time I didn't even flinch. I just turned around and walked away. Because the truth was, I had already walked away a long time ago. I just hadn't realized it until now. I didn't look back. I heard her call my name, her voice cracking, but I kept walking. The cold bit at my skin, but I barely felt it. My mind was burning, my pulse hammering in my ears like war drums. This was it, the moment everything changed. I climbed into my truck, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My breathing was heavy, uneven. I couldn't drive yet, not like this. I let my head fall back against the seat, staring up at the ceiling, my vision swimming. This was my life now. I had spent years building something with Marcy, only to have it crumble in a matter of seconds. And the worst part? I let it happen. I let her lies slide. I ignored the late nights. I made excuses for the red flags because I wanted to believe she was the woman I married. But that woman didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. A sharp knock on my window made me jolt. I turned, expecting to see Marcy standing there, still trying to dig her claws into me. But it wasn't her. It was my brother, Ethan. I rolled down the window, still trying to steady my breath. "You good?" he asked, his face lined with concern. I let out a bitter laugh. "Not even close." He exhaled, leaning against the truck. "You want to go break something?" I actually considered it for a second. Tempting. He nodded. "Figured." Then, after a beat, he said, "You want to talk?" That part was less tempting. But I knew if I didn't get this out of my system, it was going to eat me alive. So I told him everything. And the more I spoke, the more real it became. Every word that left my mouth was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. And by the time I was done, there was no denying it. This was over. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finally ran out of words, he crossed his arms and sighed. "You gonna make her pay for this?" I blinked. "What?" He shrugged. "Divorce, man. She's gonna try and screw you over. You know that, right?" I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I was still stuck in the moment, drowning in the betrayal, but Ethan was right. Marcy wasn't the type to walk away quietly. She was going to fight dirty. "Yeah," I said, my voice hoarse. "I know." He nodded. "Then don't give her a chance. Get a lawyer. Lock everything down. Don't let her take more than she already has." I ran a hand over my face. "Jesus." "Yeah," he muttered. "It's gonna suck, but you'll get through it." I wanted to believe him. The next morning, I woke up in the guest room at Ethan's place. The bed was stiff, the air too quiet. I wasn't used to sleeping alone. Even in the worst moments of my marriage, Marcy had always been there, a constant presence. Now she was gone, and for the first time I realized how much space she had taken up in my life. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. I should have been relieved. I should have felt free. But all I felt was hollow. I forced myself to get up, to move. I needed to do something before the weight of it all crushed me. By noon, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, laying out everything. The texts, the late nights, the affair. My lawyer, a sharp-looking guy named David, listened carefully before leaning back in his chair. "She's going to fight this," he said. I nodded. "I know. She'll try to play the victim. She'll say you neglected her, that she had to find comfort elsewhere. She already did." David smirked. "Of course she did." He flipped through his notes. "The good news is we can work with this. You've got evidence. And if she wants to drag this out, we'll make sure she regrets it." I exhaled. "I don't care about making her regret it. I just want out." He nodded. "Then let's get started." And just like that, the process began. The first week was hell. Marcy blew up my phone with calls and texts, swinging between anger and desperation. One minute, she was cursing me out, telling me I was ruining our family. The next, she was begging me to come home, saying she had made a mistake. I ignored her. The second week was worse. She started turning people against me. Mutual friends, even some of my own family members, started calling me up, telling me I should give her another chance. "Marriage is about forgiveness," they said. "She still loves you. You should fight for this." I laughed every time. Fight? I had been fighting for years. Marcy was the one who threw in the towel. By the third week, she got nasty. The real Marcy came out. She threatened to take everything. The house, the car, hell, even the dog. She swore up and down that she would destroy me, that I would regret ever leaving her. And you know what? That's when I finally did feel free. Because the moment she showed her true colors, I realized I had made the right decision. There was no saving this. There never had been. Marcy wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she lost control. So I gave her exactly what she deserved. Nothing. By the 4th week, I had learned to tune out the noise. Marcy's texts became nothing more than background static. Her threats and manipulations just white noise in the mess of my life. The house was quiet without her, but it was a peaceful kind of silence. A silence I hadn't even realized I needed. I spent my mornings drinking coffee without hearing her nag about something. My evenings weren't spent pretending to listen to her complain about her stress, while she snuck around behind my back. And my nights were finally my own. But Marcy wasn't done. She still had one last move to play. It was a Saturday afternoon when I got the call. Ethan and I were out at a bar, watching some game neither of us cared about when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I debated ignoring it, but something told me to answer. Yeah. A man's voice came through, smooth and self-assured. Is this Ryan? I frowned. Who's asking? I think we need to talk. About Marcy. My stomach dropped. Who the hell is this? The guy chuckled. The man your wife was cheating on you with. The bar noise faded around me. My grip on the phone tightened. I could feel Ethan's eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. What do you want? I said, my voice cold. Relax, man. I just thought you should know. She's been lying to me too. I stood up, walking out of the bar so I could hear him better. What the hell are you talking about? She told me you were some deadbeat, that you were lazy, controlling, that you didn't give a damn about her. That's why she had no choice but to find comfort elsewhere. He laughed bitterly. Sound familiar? I clenched my jaw. Yeah, it does. Well, turns out she's full of crap. I only just found out she was still with you when we were together. I thought she had already left. He sighed. She played us both. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my temper in check. And what do you want from me? Nothing, man. I just figured you should know. She's not worth the energy you're wasting on her. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Trust me, I already figured that out. There was a pause. Then he said, good luck, man. The call ended. I stood there for a moment, staring at the phone, then shook my head. Of course Marcy had been feeding him lies too. She was always the victim, always finding someone to blame for her own mistakes. And now her little web of deception was collapsing around her. I walked back into the bar, sat down, and took a long drink from my beer. Ethan raised a brow. Something I should know? I smirked. Nothing I didn't already know. But it's nice to hear it from someone else. Ethan chuckled. So, what's next? I set my beer down and exhaled. Whatever I want. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The next few days passed in a strange kind of clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I had been before. The call from Marcy's affair partner had closed a chapter in my mind that I didn't even realize needed to be shut. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had manipulated him too. Lied to everyone to craft some pathetic little fantasy where she was always the victim, always the one suffering, while she burned down everything around her. But the fire was out now. She had no more power over me. And yet, she still tried. It was late evening when my doorbell rang. I knew before I even opened it that it was her. Marcy stood there, her eyes red, mascara smudged, looking every bit the perfect little victim. A plastic bag of cheap groceries dangled from her wrist like some kind of peace offering. I stared at her, waiting. She blinked, then let out a weak laugh. Are you seriously just going to look at me? I'm waiting to hear whatever lie you came up with this time, I said flatly. She winced, but only for a second. Then she straightened her shoulders, the crocodile tears vanishing as quickly as they had come. Ryan, come on. Can we talk? I want to fix this. I stepped aside, letting her in. Not because I believed a damn word she was saying, but because I wanted to see how far she'd go with this performance. She walked in like she still owned the place, setting the grocery bag on the counter like it was some kind of grand gesture. I bought your favorites, she said, flashing a weak smile. I laughed. Is that supposed to make up for everything? She bit her lip. I know I screwed up. Screwed up, I repeated. You destroyed our marriage. You lied to me. You cheated on me. You made me feel like I was the crazy one while you ran around with some idiot who, by the way, just called me to tell me how much of a liar you are. Her face paled. He called you? Yeah. Seems like he finally figured out what you really are. She swallowed, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. Ryan, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I scoffed. You weren't trying? You weren't trying when you snuck out at night? You weren't trying when you looked me in the eyes and lied to my face? You weren't trying when you let our son be the one to expose you? Tears welled up in her eyes again, but I wasn't falling for it this time. I didn't love him, she whispered. Don't care. Her head snapped up. You don't care. No, I said simply. Because it doesn't change anything. You still did it. She sucked in a breath, like she had expected me to be weak, to crumble at her feet and beg for her back. Ryan, please. She reached out and I took a step back. Her face twisted. The act was over. You're really going to throw away everything we built? She snapped, her voice sharp now. I smiled. You already did. Silence. She let out a shaky breath, then shook her head. Fine. Fine, if this is what you want. She turned toward the door, grabbing her grocery bag in some last pathetic attempt to guilt me. But don't come crawling back when you realize how much you're losing. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Funny. I was about to say the same to you. She glared at me one last time before storming out, slamming the door behind her like a child throwing a tantrum. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then I laughed. A real, genuine, free laugh. For the first time in years, I felt light. She was gone, and I was finally free. The silence after Marcy left wasn't empty. It wasn't the suffocating kind that wraps around you when you're drowning in heartbreak. It was clean, open, like fresh air rushing into a house that had been sealed up for too long. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat down on the couch, and exhaled. It was the first time I had truly relaxed in months. No paranoia, no tension, no pretending. Just me, alone, free. I should have been angry, maybe even sad. But all I felt was relief. She had spent so much time trying to convince me that I was the problem, that I wasn't enough, that I was imagining things. Gaslighting, lying, twisting reality to make herself look innocent while she trampled over everything we built. And now she was gone. A few days passed, and the weight of it all lifted more and more with each sunrise. My mind felt clearer. I started sleeping better. I could finally think about the future without the shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. Then one evening my phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number, but I had a feeling. Marcy asterisk, can we talk? Please. I stared at the message. I had nothing left to say to her. But then, a second message came in. Marcy asterisk, I made a mistake. I chuckled. Oh, now she realized that. Now that she had been exposed, humiliated, and thrown out by the very man she had risked everything for. I left her on read. That should have been the end of it. But of course, she couldn't leave well enough alone. The next day, I walked out of the grocery store and found her waiting by my truck. She looked different. The arrogance was gone. She wasn't playing the confident, untouchable woman anymore. She looked like she had been hit by reality. Ryan, please, she said as I approached. Just hear me out. I sighed, setting my bags in the truck bed. Why? Because I know I screwed up. And I miss you. I miss us. I shook my head, laughing under my breath. There is no us, Marcy. You killed that. Her face twisted. I didn't mean to. Stop saying that. I snapped, turning to her fully. You did. Every choice you made was deliberate. Every lie. Every night you snuck off. Every time you looked me in the face and swore you were faithful. You meant to do all of it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't buying it. You don't understand, Ryan. He tricked me. He made me think. I cut her off with a sharp laugh. Wow, so it wasn't just me you lied to? You lied to yourself too. She reached for my arm, but I pulled back. Ryan, please. I know I was wrong, but we have so much history. We have a family. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. Yeah, we did. and you threw it away. So now you get to live with that choice. And I get to move on. Her breath hitched. Is there someone else? That caught me off guard. I blinked. What? Is there someone else? She repeated, her voice sharp. I frowned. Not that it's any of your business, but no. I don't need someone else to know I deserve better than this. She let out a shaky breath. Then, in true Marcy fashion, she did the one thing she knew best. She got angry. You're making a mistake, she snapped, wiping her tears away like she was erasing the weak, apologetic version of herself. You think you're so much better than me? You think you're some saint? I sighed. I don't think I'm better, Marcy. I just think I'm done. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already climbing into my truck. I didn't look back as I drove off. She had made her choices. Now it was time for me to make mine. Marcy wasn't done. I should have known she wouldn't just walk away quietly. The texts kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. First, it was apologies. Then it was rage. Then manipulation. Marcy asterisk. You're breaking up our family. Marcy asterisk. You're not perfect either, Ryan. You were never emotionally available. Marcy asterisk. I made a mistake, but you're punishing me like I murdered someone. Marcy asterisk. You're going to regret this. I didn't respond. Not once. She was a storm, throwing wind and rain in every direction, trying to flood me with guilt. But I'd already built my walls. Then, 3 days later, I got a call from my buddy, Jake. Hey man, he said. You still dealing with that whole mess with Marcy? I sighed, rubbing my temple. Yeah, she won't let up. Well, I figured you should know. She's out at O'Malley's tonight. With him. I went still. O'Malley's. The bar we used to go to together. The one where I introduced her to my friends. The one that felt like ours. And now she was bringing that bastard there? The same one she wrecked our marriage for? Ryan? Jake asked. I took a slow breath. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up. I didn't know what pissed me off more. The blatant disrespect or the fact that she thought I still cared enough to react. I wasn't about to storm in there and start a scene. That's what she wanted. That's what he wanted. No, if Marcy wanted to prove she was a heartless, selfish woman in front of the whole town, I'd let her. Instead, I went home, grabbed a beer, and put on a game. An hour later, my phone rang again. It was Jake. Dude, he said, barely able to contain his laughter. Marcy just got thrown out of O'Malley's. I blinked. What? She and Loverboy got into it. Full-blown screaming match. She chucked her drink at him, he called her crazy. And the bouncer tossed them both. I let out a slow chuckle. That so? Oh yeah, everyone saw. It was ugly. I shook my head, smirking. Karma moves fast, huh? Jake laughed. Guess so. Thought you'd like to know. Appreciate it, man. When I hung up, I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. For months, I had been caught in her web, struggling, suffocating, desperate for truth, for closure, for something. But now I realized I didn't need it. Marcy was Marcy. She hadn't changed. She wouldn't change. And I was finally free of her. The weight in my chest was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like me again. A week passed, and Marcy's attempts to get a reaction out of me didn't slow down. If anything, they got worse. She started calling from unknown numbers, leaving voicemails that ranged from teary-eyed confessions to outright threats. You're throwing away everything we built, Ryan. I know you still love me. You wouldn't have stayed with me for this long if you didn't. You can ignore me all you want, but you will talk to me. I ignored every single one. Then, late one night, I heard something outside my house, a rustling near the porch. I grabbed the nearest thing that could work as a weapon, an old baseball bat, and moved to the window. The porch light flicked on, and there she was, Marcy, barefoot, disheveled, a bottle in one hand, phone in the other. Her makeup was smeared, and her hair looked like she hadn't brushed it in days. I stepped outside, keeping my distance. What the hell are you doing here? She swayed slightly, barely able to stand. I just needed to see you. Go home, Marcy. She shook her head. Not until you listen. I clenched my jaw. I don't care what you have to say. She staggered forward, reaching for me, but I stepped back. That's when her expression changed. The pathetic, broken act disappeared, replaced by something colder. You know what, Ryan? She slurred. You were never enough for me. I exhaled through my nose. I figured that out already. She laughed bitterly. No, you haven't. You think I just made one mistake? You think it was just him? Something in my stomach turned. Marcy smirked. Yeah, that's what I thought. I should have left it there. I should have turned around, walked inside, and shut the door in her face. But she wanted me to break, and I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You really think any of this is getting to me? Her smirk faltered. You think I sit around, hurting over you? Over some pathetic, lying, miserable excuse of a woman? She blinked, as if she hadn't expected that. You ruined everything, I said, my voice steady. You had a husband who loved you, a son who trusted you, and you threw it all away. For what? Her lower lip trembled. I leaned in just enough. You're alone, Marcy, and you did it to yourself. She inhaled sharply, turned on her heel, and stormed off into the night. I didn't watch her go. I didn't need to, because I knew, for the first time in her life, Marcy had finally realized something. She lost. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. It wasn't happiness, far from it, but it was clarity. I had said everything I needed to say. There was nothing left between me and Marcy except the legal process to make it all official. But Marcy wasn't done. By noon, I got a text from an unknown number. You'll regret talking to me like that. I scoffed and tossed my phone onto the couch. I wasn't playing her games anymore. Then, around 3 in the afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer. Ryan, we've got a problem. I sat up straight. What kind of problem? He exhaled sharply. Marcy just filed for full custody of your son. My blood turned ice cold. She's claiming you're unstable, that you've been acting erratically, saying concerning things, and that she's worried for your son's safety. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. That's insane. She barely spends time with him, and she's the one who cheated, not me. I know, Ryan, but you have to understand. Family court isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about perception. If she can paint a convincing enough picture, she can make your life hell. I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to steady my breathing. What do? We fight it. Hard. But you cannot give her anything she can use against you. No outbursts. No angry messages. No confrontation. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Understood. But inside, I was raging. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew she had already lost me, so now she was trying to take the one thing that mattered more than anything. Our son. I wasn't going to let her. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and gathering everything I could to show that I was the stable, responsible parent. Marcy, on the other hand, played the perfect role of the concerned mother. She showed up to school meetings, suddenly started posting about motherhood on social media, and even had the audacity to text me pretending to be civil. We don't have to do this the hard way, Ryan. Just let me take care of him. Asterisk. I didn't respond. Then, 2 days before our custody hearing, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Hello, Ryan. A man's voice. Hesitant. Nervous. Who's this? A pause. Then, my name is David. You don't know me, but I know Marcy. I froze. She did the same thing to me, he continued. Cheated. Lied. Manipulated. And when I tried to leave, she tried to ruin my life. I tightened my grip on the phone. Go on. David exhaled shakily. I saw what she's doing to you. The custody battle. The fake concerns. She did the exact same thing to me. And I lost. I leaned forward. What do you mean? She convinced the court I was unstable. She got full custody of our daughter. I haven't seen her in 4 years. I shut my eyes, anger surging through me. But I have proof, David said suddenly. Old messages, emails, records of her lying in court. I couldn't use them back then, but maybe they can help you now. I didn't hesitate. Send me everything. An hour later, I had a full folder sitting in my inbox. Emails where Marcy admitted to faking evidence. Text messages where she bragged about using the legal system to punish men she was done with. Even voicemails where she laughed about playing the victim. I had exactly what I needed. The day of the custody hearing, I walked into that courtroom with my lawyer at my side, my heart hammering in my chest. Marcy sat across from me, wearing a carefully curated expression of concern, like she was some noble mother just trying to protect her son from a dangerous, unstable father. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't need to. The hearing started, and Marcy's lawyer wasted no time painting me as an erratic, unpredictable man struggling to cope with divorce. They referenced my anger, my outburst at the baby shower, and even implied that I was emotionally unstable. She's setting the stage, my lawyer whispered. They'll call her to testify next. And they did. Marcy took the stand, tears shimmering in her eyes. I loved Ryan, she said in a trembling voice. But ever since I told him I wanted a divorce, he's been different, angrier, more unpredictable. I don't feel safe leaving my son alone with him anymore. Lies, every word. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay calm. Then it was my turn. I walked up to the stand, my lawyer handing the judge a thick folder. With all due respect, Your Honor, what my ex-wife feels is irrelevant. What matters is facts. And I have them. The judge flipped open the folder. Go on. I exhaled, locking eyes with Marcy. I have evidence that this isn't the first time Marcy has done this. I spoke with her previous husband, a man who lost his daughter to the same lies she's telling today. Marcy's face paled. I have emails, text messages, even voicemails proving that she manipulated the legal system before. She's using this process, to punish me for exposing her infidelity. Her lawyer stammered. Objection, Your Honor. The judge held up a hand. I'd like to see this evidence. For the next 15 minutes, the courtroom sat in stunned silence as the judge read through every damning word. The emails where Marcy admitted to fabricating stories. The messages where she mocked her previous ex for being too weak to fight back. The voice recordings where she bragged about weaponizing the court system. By the time I was done, Marcy looked like she had been hit by a truck. She tried to recover, tried to throw in more fake tears, more desperate claims. But it was too late. The judge ruled in my favor. I got joint custody, with a strict clause that prevented Marcy from making any unfounded claims without solid proof. She was exposed, humiliated, and, most importantly, powerless star. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Later that night, I sat on my porch, sipping a cold beer, watching my son play in the yard. I had won, not just in court, but in life. Marcy? She'd spend the rest of her days wallowing in her own misery, because women like her don't change. They just move on to the next poor guy to destroy. But me? I was done looking backward. I was ready for whatever came next.